kind of input into. And we have a group within our within our commercial division called the Equitable Land Use Group, ELU. I think Alex and Max are in the room tonight. You know, we have land use lawyers who are no longer behind the scenes giving advice to the Office of Planning, but actually being in community, seeing where issues about how we do develop in our city can protect some core interests that go to the public interest, like environmental sustainability, like avoiding displacement, like making sure that when developers do make commitments, they make enough of a commitment on affordable housing to be meaningful in the city, and that they live up to their commitments after they've made it. It is unacceptable for the city to get retraded. You make a promise, you're going to do something for the city, you got the value of the land, you got probably some tax breaks, you got to live up to your bargain. And so our ELU group, in consultation with our commercial lawyers, are leaning into that space to try to see what we can do to stem, wherever we can, some of the gentrification. We've got to realize that also we're a city where we have a good problem in the sense that more people want to live in Washington than we have housing. It's much better than the opposite problem where nobody wants to live there anymore, right? But we have to do something about the fact that we can't allow, I can't tell you how many people told me when I was campaigning, Mr. Schwalb, you know, we lived through the bad times. We lived through the poverty. We should be able to stay for the prosperity. And you know what, how do you argue again? There's no good response to that, right? And so part of it is how do we protect existing housing stock? How do we use the housing laws to make sure that deplorable conditions don't exist? Because we need units that people can live in. How do we hold the housing authority accountable for doing its job? And how do we, because we need developers to build new houses, we need more inventory, but they have to do it in a way that's environmentally sustainable, that has a minimal racial impact on displacement, and then we have to hold them accountable for the promises that they're making.
You know, one part to add to it is that when the assessments in this community get to $700,000 and $800,000, maybe 10 years from now, that means any of us who are in your 40s and 50s now will be senior citizens, and you will be applying for a homestead exemption and whatever tax rate you give as a senior citizen. But your assessment is going to be based on that $900,000. So if your income is only $4,000 a month, you got to move. You got to get the heck out of Washington, D.C. You can't live here. And that's where the government should step in and tell them, Mr. Comey Jack, take these prices up this year. You don't come in. They didn't double, they triple these prices. But you brought nothing to it. No, you shut a hospital down, but you brought nothing, no supermarket, no anything to the community that we can benefit from. I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, it's hugely important. And you know, the tension there, obviously, is that for a lot of families, the wealth of that family is in that property. And we don't have nor should we have a country that says to somebody who's owned their house for generations and now has that payday to say, sorry, you know, we're going to cap the value. But we do have to protect seniors. We can't have a situation where people, because they can't pay the property tax on a house that they've fully paid off. But you should know there are already legal protections in place, and that's legislative. And to the extent that those legislative protections need to be enhanced, that's something that our policy and legislative team works on, and we're aware of that tension. Finally, I'll just say, you know, to the last question about